All right. Today I was going to talk about adaptation. Why it's so hard for some of us to adapt to some of the things that are going on. Because it used to be I think it was every 10 years or so. At one point, it was over 100 years, information would double. Then it keeps getting shorter and shorter. And now the amount of information doubles I think it's every few months. Yeah. And if you add in how much information within our lifetimes, everybody here, that is at your fingertips, that even in the 90s was very hard to access, right? We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google. We didn't have all this information at our fingertips that we have now, right? So that's changed everything, and then it keeps speeding up. And the key to survival is being able to adapt and improvise, right? Improvisation is key. I started thinking about this because it impacts me, and I wondered this. I'll tie all these stories together for my NLP people in the group. The open loop, I'm going to open where it comes from, and then I'll close it, because I know that all of us, are hypnotists, coaches, entrepreneurs of different types. So we're all in this together, and we're all part of the tribe. And lately, I've been focusing on helping hypnotist coaches, and I'm kind of expanding out into entrepreneurs that want to increase their effectiveness in their communication, whether it's social media posts or social media ads, Google ads, whatever they're doing, emails even, right? With kind of what the class I'll be teaching soon, which is the hypnotic writing 2.0 and over-the-top marketing. Because I'm tired. I see so many people, and I go through this, struggle. Right? Especially good hypnotists, good coaches, good entrepreneurs. They're good at what they do, but they can get the results, whatever it is, right? Whether it's coaching a client, fulfilling, giving somebody a good product, whatever it happens, whether it's office equipment, whether it's like jewelry, whatever it happens to be, you're good at that. But can you reach the people through all this clutter that we also now have, that we're dealing with? Used to be, a lot of us can realize, go back in the 90s, I built several big practices in the 80s and 90s just through newspaper ads. And then Valpak, those little pack, they're still out there, the little Valpak. I could path a clinic in those, no problem. And I had pretty good results with radio, and radio still works, but that's it was a little different, but I had great results, right? Well, nobody reads paper anymore. It's all online. And so how do you reach the people is the problem. And it's all about, adapting and being fluid in that. And that's one reason it used to be a full generation. Now it's quicker than that industries are taken over by younger people, because the technology that they grew up with, that was forming, that they grew up with and was comfortable with, whether it's social media, whether it's internet marketing, whether all the stuff that is out there that we saw start to develop, if you grew up with it, that becomes your default of how you want to communicate. So they're much more comfortable, much more flexible with using this stuff and staying current, and basically they start dominating the market, and it pushes out us dinosaurs, right? Because unless you're one of the ones that can adapt quickly and co-opt that information, of course, if you're big enough, like our dear friend Tony Robbins, where he has a social media, department in his organization, plus he's great at getting volunteers. I almost want to use slave labor, but volunteers to help build all this stuff, right? But it's why we see that happen, right? Can you adapt? Can you do these things, right? And so I wish Captain Billy was on this call, because we could always talk about, and when I started thinking about it, one of the things that came to mind is you always hear the military talk about one of the problems they have is the military will always fight the last war first when they're starting a new war, right? The best example to me, my lifetime, I was a kid, but when Vietnam was escalating, some of the generals were like, we built an army to fight the Soviet Union in Europe. Flat land, tanks would reign supreme. We could do this. Now we're in a jungle. Tanks aren't very useful in a jungle, right? And so it took a while to adapt and do this. Same with, that we're seeing it now in the Ukraine with the Soviet army. They were expecting it to go one way. They were fighting their last big war, which was World War II. And it doesn't work anymore. So anyway, can you adapt, right? And it ties into one of my other passions, which is acting. One of the things that, all good actors study at some point, or at least work on somewhat, is improvisation, right? Whether it's film acting or stage acting, you'll always see these posts, or you'll see articles about some of the best lines that we remember from movies, some of the most memorable moments were made up on the spot, right? It wasn't the line that was meant to be said, right? I remember like in the second Star, whatever, one of the first 3 Star Wars, where Princess Leia tells Han Solo that she loves him. And I forget what they wrote, and they said it was nice, but for some reason Harrison Ford just went, I know. And then they froze it. And it was like, because they said they turned to the director and George Lucas, who was there, like, do you want to reshoot it, and do the lines you wrote? And he goes, no, that was perfect, right? And he made it up on the spot, right? So you want to, so you have to learn how to do that. And of course, in stage acting, which I'm doing a play now, first one in a few years, last night was a good example. People drop lines, they miss cues, right? And this now is in real time. You can't stop anything to redo, right? Because there's an audience out there and you're doing everything in real time. So can you adapt and improvise? It's not going to go the way you intended, right? And I think that's a good tool for all of us entrepreneurs, whether you're a hypnotist, a coach, selling office equipment or office things or jewelry or whatever it is that you're doing. You have to adapt, right? One of my favorite quotes that I use lately is from Churchill. Mr. McGuire sent me all these quotes, and there was one that I remembered that I was taught a long time ago, which is, strategy is great, but every once in a while you should look at your results. Because do you fall in love with the strategy? And you're going to keep doing the strategy, even when it passes the point it's not working. And again, go back to, when you look at what America did in Vietnam, it wasn't working. We'll just do it harder, right? And we kind of did the same mistake in the last couple. It's like, no, and when they adapted the strategies, or they changed their strategies based on the results that they were seeing, in real time, they were much more effective, right? And again, and a lot of this boils back to one step behind it, which is what was the perception of what was going on as much as what was going on, right? And so, so can you adapt and improvise on the fly? I try when I teach trainers training, NLP or hypnosis trainers training, I greatly encourage all of my students to take acting classes, of course, and magic classes, because magic is all improvisation, right? And to take an improvisation class. Now they're easy to find. They used to be kind of hard. There was like Second City in Chicago and a couple others, but now they're everywhere. But they're great because it teaches you to think fast on your feet. That's all really improvisation is, right? And to feed off what's happening around you. Don't go in with preset things. And I think once you develop a strategy and you're trying a marketing technique, I always say follow the recipe that someone gives you, but then eventually you have to look, is it getting you the results that you want, right? Can you adapt and can you improvise, right? And that's a skill set that I think becomes harder for those of us that have had success with an old strategy in the past. That, why doesn't this work anymore? You know, well, the market's changed, right? The demographics changed. The little theater I'm doing this play in now, last night we were there, and the artistic director was there, and they were talking about reaching out to new clients because it's Florida, so it's an older population. And then when COVID happened, they had to shut down for a year, and they've been rebooting now for a while. And they're talking about reaching out to new markets. And they gave me a compliment. They said, "You kind of do this. Well, what would you suggest?" I said, "Well, first of all, fix your social media." You know, and the one guy, "Well, that's not our typical demographic." I go, "Your demographic's dying." I don't mean to be cruel, but like, you know, the gray hairs are getting fewer and fewer, right? And you need to, even if you're going to replace them with new gray hairs, you know, what's your Facebook? What you're doing this? What's your website? And that. So it was kind of interesting that the one artistic director was really open to it. And the other one's like, no, we're just going to double down and go to more like chamber meetings and go to this and go to that. And I'm like, is it working? I was dismissed, but to me, it was a legitimate question. If it's working, you know, are your shows selling out? If they're not selling out, then, you know, you might be just you're wasting your time at like the chambers and that. And in fact, a few years ago, when they had a different artistic director, we were talking about building up their clientele. And my suggestion was they were going to the chambers and the Rotaries and all those meetings. I said, well, talk about using it, not like what it does for us, what it would do for them, you know, to offer, to adapt and improvise and say, like, you know, sell tickets. We'll give you 10% of whatever you sell, right? Sell it to your group as a team building experience, right? And that. So, you know, so can you adapt? And I will admit, sometimes it's hard because it's new technology. You gotta learn it. You know, I'm struggling through it now. You know, as Diamond Diller can tell you, I'm struggling through trying to figure out how to do some of the new stuff in different ways. Redid my website with funnels, and I'm doing this and that, right? And the way that it works for me, if you want to, I had to think of it like an actor, which is, if you want to be effective at your craft, you've got to learn all the tools behind your craft. And one of the tools is improvisation and adaptation in real time on the stage or on set in front of the camera. Well, if I want to do this with my business, I need to step back and go, well, I need to adapt and improvise, you know, the way I'm approaching getting new clients, the way I'm approaching writing everything, the way I'm doing this, right? So yeah, so, you know, can you adapt, right? And improvise, right? And learn from the people that are doing it. You know, it's one of the reasons I will say we see it all the time in this business, the hypnosis, NLP, and the coaching community. There are people with no background in any of this, coaching, therapy, any of that. In fact, one guy just did it. Within 2 years, he's got like, he's a strong 6-figure coach on helping people build their practice. Even though one time he admitted he never studied this, he was a good marketer. He understood internet marketing. He understood how to, you know, doing this and doing that. That's part of the business. And he said he just found a niche. In fact, some of the ClickFunnels guys would tell you this. You find an underserved niche. There's a lot of hypnotists that don't know how to market, right? So go in there and show them how to market, right? And one of the persons that did that, I kind of respect, because he will farm out if you wanted to ask him questions on therapy. Oh, hey, I got this client that has this. And because I heard a call he did, he goes, well, yeah, I'll refer you to someone that can coach you on that. I'm teaching you the marketing and the, building your social media and this and that, right? And so, so that's why you also see in our field, which is kind of interesting, there's a disconnect, I think. I would like your advice on this, right? Which is, you see that some of the guys in our field and girls, they're posting pictures, like they'll show you how to build their practice, and they're at this, they're sitting by the pool having a drink, or they're on the beach, they're doing this, right? Because that comes directly from the internet marketing, right? I'm going to teach you the laptop lifestyle, but if you really want to be a hypnotist, you're probably not going to be doing your session sitting by the pool drinking a margarita, right? But it's it seems to work. The few people I know, they're doing quite well. Some of the others, they approach it slightly differently. But again, it's all about adaptation. What's working, what's not working. One of the ways is to step back from whatever your strategy currently is and say, well, what seems to be working out there, and then figure out what they're doing. Reverse engineering, reverse engineering. And one of the things I love that, and I'm not in their system, but ClickFunnels does, I follow their marketing, right? Is he tells people, if you find someone that's doing something you like, or their ads grab your attention, and it's especially if it's a low dollar, thing to buy it just to get into their list, to see how they're marketing it, right? It's like, okay, what's the first email you get with, if you're going to build this the way the current world is flowing? It's like, oh, okay, how often do you do this? How often do you do that? And so again, even in our little world, for the people watching this with hypnotists and NLPers and coaches, the people that are breaking out and doing quite well are following a different model than the others, right? So I, later on, if you could send me your advice on, what you think of how that stuff works, right? And so real quickly, one of the things you can do is realize, when you're beginning to do this, we fall in love. And you always hear me talk about the paradox of knowledge, because we have this knowledge, NLP, hypnosis, psychology, coaching, EFT, whatever it is that we know, right? And we think that's what's important, right, to our clients, right? Or to our prospects, not our clients, right? No, they could care less, right? They're looking for the result, right? And one of the ways to do it, even without adding like hypnotic writing and the fancy stuff, is, in your posts or in what you're doing, you kind of give them the dream outcome, right? The dream outcome. And give an example. How would you like to learn how to write a post that would get the kind of feedback that you want? That's the dream outcome, right? So if you just list what the dream outcome, how would you like to have a full appointment schedule? That's a nice outcome, right? And that's without getting fancy with our hypnotic language and adding this. You just post that, people will get their attention. Then you want to begin to think about, what are the likelihood, right? Likelihood, or what are the chances this will work for me? So you dream of having a full appointment schedule based on just on social media posts and Facebook ads, or this has worked with over 70%, especially if you give a real number, 70% of the people I taught it, right? And the research that they say behind the scenes, Caldini and the people that they don't do all the research, but they study all the research, is the successful ones never claim 100%, right? But if you're in the high range, 80% of our clients, 75%, 90%, right? Because I think some of us, especially if you're dealing with a more mature group, it's like everyone, right? Just like the current research says, if you're going to put ratings on your website, the reviews, right? The reviews, the most successful reviews, here's a tip for you, I give away, right? The tip I found, right, from the research is the reviews should be between 4.2 and 4.7. Get the best response. So if it's all 5-star reviews, people gotta go, well, you know. But if it hovers between these numbers, I think they said the research says it's like 18% more effective. Especially with more mature, or even as younger people coming in with a little bit of savviness about how this stuff works, just subconsciously. These are real, you know. So if you're going to say the likelihood, shy away from 100%, but keep it up there. You know, 90% of my clients find success doing this, right? So you do that, and it gets you that thing. So what you're really selling is the dream outcome and the likelihood it'll succeed. But then the really good marketers do one more thing. They back up and, you know, they attack what would be a weakness of it is, how long will this take? What's the time commitment, right? How long will this take, right? Because people want it fast, but, you know, and if you can do it fast, you know, one guy did it, and I don't know if it's true. Well, he's huge. I'm not going to mention his name. But I'll show you how to build $1 million business in 90 days. I did it with no money, right? I'm like, I haven't done his course. I don't know what's in it, but it's like, it's kind of interesting, right? And he gives a time frame, right? Now, if you were selling personal coaching like weightlifting or getting in shape, it would probably be better to be honest on how long it's going to take. You don't join the gym on Monday and win a bodybuilding contest on Friday, you know, as much as we would like to, right? So how long, and then also how much effort is it going to be, right? And of course, us hypnotists here, especially people who's taking hypnotic writing, we use the term effortless, easily, effortlessly, right? And if it does take some effort, what if you just paraphrase that with, it's almost effortless? You know, it's almost effortless. And then these are just some things behind the things to adapt at what seems to be working out there based on the research, right? Based on all the stuff that they're learning, right? I can't read all my notes. Okay. I should really work on my penmanship. I take notes, then I can't read them. Anybody else do that? Anybody else like, you know? Just, I'm so used to like typing little things. Now it's like, what the heck is that? Right? So anyways, can you adapt? Can you do this? Right? And the last thing, I kind of did it at the beginning. If you're going to put things out there to your group, and I'm working on this because I just saw this, I heard it mentioned on, I think it was Caldini was talking about it, and he gives the research. Because we all want to be part of a tribe. You know, we're all tribe, right? And the more you define your tribe and bring people into it, the better success that you will have, right? And part of it's just saying, like, we're a group, we're together, right? And if you're facing a similar issue, like building new clientele, having a health challenge, whatever it is, this is how Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, it's a group, it's a tribe facing a common enemy, you know, all the things I teach about in you know, that the 5 steps to how to build a cult, you know, is true, right? And so if you just mention that to your tribe, and then if you want to bring them in even more, let's say you're working on a new product, right? And you say to the people here, like this group, I might say, you could ask for their opinion, right? What's your opinion on this? If I ask your opinion, there's a psychological thing that it does. It pulls you out of being part of the tribe, pulls you back into critiquing it. And you're going to give, at least from your viewpoint, constructive criticism, right? Okay. But it pulls you, even if you ask for, you know, their opinion, you know, stuff like that, that's what's going to happen. But if you ask for their advice, you know, hey, you know, and you preface it with, I'll throw in some of our magic words that we teach, you know, you're the expert at this. So let me ask you a question. What advice could you give me on building this? Then it becomes a cooperative team. Because then they're stepping into, okay, like almost like you're doing this together. So do you want them to step back and critique it, right? Or do you want them to step in and be a part of it? And when I saw this and was reading about it and listening to it, I thought that's the difference. And I'll link it back to something else, going back to my theater world. The really good directors bring you into it. They don't critique your performance. They step into it with you. Here's my advice on how we should do this, because, this is a collaborative effort, whether it's a play or a movie or a TV thing, right? We're in this together, right? Which brings the actor in, like, yeah, tell me how to be better. I want to be better. As opposed to, if you're just going to tell me the stuff you think is wrong without a solution, it's which way do you want their mind going? So if you ask for their advice, right? Not their opinion or not their feedback, but their advice, it switches something in your head. It also clicks you into being, like I say, part of on their team. And it does the illusion of linking you together, because you usually only ask advice from people you respect and admire. And if you're putting that out there that you respect and admire them, they're going to give it back to you, right? So, and whatever that other part was will probably be in a week or two when I decipher the rest of those notes. But that's it. Can you adapt? Can you improvise? Can you, learn what you need to learn from from as the markets change, as all of this stuff is changing and adapting. So, okay, I'm going to open this up for discussion. That can be recorded. Right. Oh, and by the way, they did say this too. If like you're starting a class, if you're going to do a Zoom class, or some of the other platforms do it the same way, so it looks like this. Right. A lot of us will go and we'll just automatically like pin our video, so you're in the focal point at the very beginning. The loose research, they said, is start this way as a group. Right? As a group. I too am a struggling hypnotist. I too am trying to build my business. I too, so you bring them in. And so, I'm going to teach something in a few minutes. And at the end, later, I really would love some advice on how to make this better. And then you step back, and do your pin the video. So now you're the focus and listen, right? It builds the collaborative team effort. So anybody else get turned on by some of this stuff that we do?
Yes.
And it's just how your brain works. The other day I did that post about why you want to ask questions. It's how your brain works. Who else wants to learn how to do this? Who else wants to do this? Would you like this? And then your brain, it brings people in. So.
May I?
Excellent.
Yes. May I just say that the best results I get that I have had have always been following these types of suggestions. And the timing of these meetings just works out so well for me, because following this meeting, I go to a monthly business luncheon. And I usually carry my Wednesday wisdom forward. Whatever I get from you that day, I will use in my intro when we go around circle, and introduce ourselves. It sparks so much curiosity, and it shows the breadth of what we do and how it can be applied.
Think how good you'll feel when today you mentioned there's a hypnotic writing class that's open to all entrepreneurs and business people. And since it's online, they can do it in Washington, even though I'm in Florida.
That's right.
Learn the secrets of hypnosis as an entrepreneur.
I'm taking it forward today, Dr. Will. Count on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
No other comments? How about Mr. Reed, the entrepreneur of office equipment and supply?
I got pulled in a different direction because I had to cancel a meeting. I've got to go see the burn specialist today.
Oh,
So I was paying attention, but I also was getting pulled in. My attention wasn't completely on. But I'm making progress. They tell me I'm probably going to keep my toes.
okay.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah. I've got pictures, but nobody wants
No,
to see
no, we don't know.
them.
No.
It's
That's okay.
way too graphic.
We'll take your word for this one.
Yeah. How about Diamond Diller?
Love that.
So it is kind of interesting because before the beginning of the new year, a buddy of mine and I were talking. He was a VC within one of my things and talking about what I was doing with Mazel.com, Joe Wilder Art, etc. And he said to me, he said, forget everything you know. Sit down and write what you're doing from the beginning. Define what you're doing as though you're doing this from the beginning. And really what it did was it got me off of what I'm going to call the stuff trap of you do stuff because you think you need to get it done. And then you go, hold it. That's not really creating sales opportunities. So do I really need to be bothered with making sure that the grammar is 100% correct? Or am I better off just going, explaining what's in it for them, in terms of what I'm selling, which is kind of interesting because it also brought me to the point that I've just been discussing this with Dr. Will. I'm selling the same thing as everybody else. I may be selling positivity or things that spread happiness, but the bottom line is Lucky Charms have no magical power except for what we believe in them. And when people have lucky talismans and amulets, they perform much better. So in a sense, I say I'm selling confidence. One of my favorite lines is from Helena Rubinstein, who said, I'm not selling makeup, I'm selling hope in a bottle. And I think we're all doing it. So it's like when you sell confidence, and even for like Reed, who sells office equipment, when you sell the confidence that that piece of machinery or that thing is always going to be there to perform and not screw them up, you just explained what's in it for them and gave them the confidence that they can do what they need to do. So one of the greatest things that I did was taking a step back and going, what am I really doing? Define it in words. I will admit that I put some of my words into chat GPT and said, help me write this. And it really did. It was like, it solidified things in my mind in terms of who I'm selling to, what I'm selling to, and what it could do for others. Solve a problem and people buy. And by the way, we're all learning new because everything, and when you said, excuse me, one more thing, when Dr. Will spoke about a tribe, when you're putting social media posts up, you're trying to get your tribe to read it and interact with it. And yes, asking for advice or something like that makes somebody else feel valued. It's just, and then to Dr. Will, I was like, when you said something about the new people that are doing stuff and crushing it and all of a sudden, etc. So I put in the chat the Mark Twain quote, which is one of my favorites. The best swordsman does not fear the second best. He fears the worst because there's no telling what that idiot is going to do. He doesn't play by the rules. So sometimes you got to throw the rules out and go through it. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just throwing those rules out and doing it my own way. By the way, I do like getting turned on.
Yeah. The other day I was doing something and on your Facebook it comes up that one of your friends is doing a lot. This guy's big on building your email list. He's an email list builder. And I've known him. He's also a hypnotist. He was a hypnotist. I think he got trained in the late 90s, early maybe 2000, 2001. And then he got into internet marketing. So he's one of the first guys that went from hypnosis into that world. So he knew hypnosis and NLP into the internet marketing world. And so he crushed it, right, for a long time, right? But anyway, and I like the guy, he's crazy and just like us, but he's a fun guy to talk to. And so I'm like, I'll listen to part of what he has as I'm doing other stuff. And he had the first guy he was interviewing, they were talking, and he goes, at their height, they were both sending out between 2.5 and 3.5 million emails a day. That's the kind of list they were cranking. So even if you're getting a 0.005 response rate, if you're sending millions, just, then if you back engineer that, right? But the question is, how the hell did you build that list? And he goes, no, they were all like, people actually got on the list. He didn't go buy lists or any of that other stuff. So they were talking about a few things like that. But one of the things they said is they used the martial arts analogy that you learn fastest when you're getting your ass kicked by people better than you. Right? If you only spar, if I went back into training hard and I only spar people that are new in martial arts, that there's no challenge, right? But if I step in there with guys 20 years younger that have been doing martial arts for 20 years, I'm probably going to get my butt kicked, right? But I'm going to learn. Does that make sense to everybody, right? And so he goes, the people I see succeed, the other guy, not his name's Tillman Knutson. He said, the people he's seen succeed in internet marketing and social media marketing and all this other stuff have stepped up and gotten their butts kicked. And they both said, Facebook wasn't big when they were doing this last time, right? And now they're kind of relaunching it, right? So that was cool. Are you willing to get your butt kicked, right? And the second one, he was interviewing another guy, and they were talking about building your list and building your business. And he mentioned to him, yeah, I know you've had several of these businesses over the years. Some did well, some did not. And he goes, well, the mistake I made for years, and I wrote this one down somewhere, but it's not on this page. He goes, the mistake I made for years is I was trying to find a market I could sell to make money. But one day when I finally, and he said, he was part of the other call. He goes, after I got my ass kicked, I sat back and I looked in the mirror. And he goes, I'm just going to sell what excites me. And then then he goes, everything started to explode. And then the other guy said, yeah, because then if you're doing, especially doing a live post and that, you're congruent, right? You're the words that you're selling. And then when people see that you're excited about doing this, you're not just selling it because people need it. You're selling it because you believe in it and it's fun, right? And it still excites you and you can keep going. It's probably why I haven't really been able to kick off the addiction thing. Like because I love it and I love helping people with it, but I've been doing that for 35 years. It's a little bit of the, overwhelm. Yeah. So anyway, but I love that. Like, are you willing to get your butt kicked? Which I also say in improv, which don't try to be funny. When you watch that, like, if you ever watch the show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Which is still on, right? And those guys are masters at it. One time they did a talk and they're like, yeah, you can't try to be funny. Because the lines you think are funny might fall flat. It's those interactions and that. So anyway, I'll shut up now. I'll turn off the recording in case people want to, gossip and criticize.
I think
Record. All right. And don't forget, Saturday, the 21st, is the hypnotic writing. And if you're watching this after the 21st of 2023, of course, it's recorded on my website, drwillhorton.com. And there it is, hypnotic writing and over-the-top marketing 2.0. And if you have any questions, just reach out.